Please welcome the incredible Ashley Brasseaux.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much, Renee. It's such an honor to be here with you.
Well, thanks for joining me, Miss Pitchy Pitch.
Yeah.
I get pitched all the time on this show, and there's a couple things that make a cold pitch turn into a yes. And one is when people who are generous and kind reach out with conviction that they're going to be a great guest for the show because they actually pay attention, and you're one of them.
Wow. That's so good. Thank you so much. It's always good to know, especially from your PR standpoint, like how or why you would select somebody versus somebody else. So I know we had just connected on Instagram and you've been asking for a few referrals, like who should I have on next? I sent you a few people. And I was like, and actually I'll throw my name into the hat too, because I think it has some value I could add to your audience. So that's really good feedback.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And you provided a really cool email with some topic ideas and a little bit about you. So, and I replied by saying that you're very organized. I think in the world of like pitching, a lot of people just rush to get them out and to try to be on as many shows as possible. And hosts don't want that. Hosts don't want the fact that Ashley's been on 60 other shows in the last 3 months, because then it's like unoriginal content. So, I mean, this is probably tied into launching too. But anyway,
no, that's great.
You're a launch queen. You've had the luxury of working with somebody who I know, Selena Sue.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I've like maybe never done a launch, or if I've done a launch, it was so terrible that I didn't even want to admit having done it.
Oh, this will be a good thing. You can ask all of your questions,
right?
Prep for, future launch for yourself.
Maybe. We'll see. It seems exhausting. I did Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy a few years ago, and I was like, oh, I don't like the live launch method.
Yeah.
I don't like it. There's so much pressure.
Yes. It is a lot of work, but it can be very, very rewarding. So there's pros and cons there. We can talk about that too.
Yeah. Well, first of all, tell us what a launch is, and do we even need one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a launch typically is a marketing campaign. It means you've got some kind of program, usually an online course, a coaching program, a membership site that you're ready to kind of share with the world on a mass scale. It's different than when you're just looking for like a one-off client and you're doing a lot of one-on-one work. This is a one-to-many advanced play, I would say, where you have an established audience, you have a proven offer, and the objective is to fill the offer. So typically what that looks like is you are creating some kind of pre-launch strategy to warm up your audience. You have a traffic strategy to get people to some kind of live event. You host a live event, and then you have a follow-up email sequence where you continue to nurture those relationships and persuade people to join you within a certain amount of time. So it's beyond the one-off Instagram story post. Hey, I have this thing. Do you want to buy? It's beyond the one-off connections. It's really an event to help build your brand and grow your sales.
So, okay, so many questions because my anxiety just came up and why I've never done this before. Okay. One is, how big of an audience do you actually need?
That is a great question. And I hate to say it depends, but it depends, right? It depends. What are your launch goals? What is the revenue that you're trying to hit from the actual launch? Are you trying to make your first 10K? Are you trying to hit your first six-figure campaign? You want a 6-figure launch, right? And then also, how much is the offer that you're selling? Because commonly, when people get started in the online space, they think, oh, I'm just going to start small. I'll sell something for $37 or for, $100 because I'm small. I'm new at this. And actually, if you're just starting out, it makes way more sense to sell something high ticket if you don't have an audience yet, because you don't need as many sales in order to be profitable, right? So if you're brand new and there's only 100 people in your audience and you sell something for $37, how many $37 things are you going to have to sell in order to make your first $1,000, right? Or you could just go and offer something for $1,000 and sell it to one person, and then your statistics are much better. So I think it depends on what your goals are for your stage of business, what your revenue goals are, and also taking a look at what's your price point.
Got you. Okay. The other thing that gave me anxiety
Love this.
is the technology in creating a launch. Like, what email list am I using? Do I have to use Zapier to connect stuff? Is there a platform that does all of this? Like, I've looked into it and I've tried this before, from like Webinar Ninja and I gave up. because it was too overwhelming for me. So what is the typical tech behind a launch?
Yeah, I mean, you could get really technical with this. If this is like your business model, you will use things like Webinar Jam or Webinar Widget, like the Ninja, all the things you're talking about. But honestly, the biggest launches I'm behind today are still keeping it basic. It's like we have Zoom and we have an email autoresponder, and that's about it. You get on Zoom for your live event. There's a recording. You send it out to your email list to the people who have registered for the event, right? So it's not like you're blasting everyone typically. It's like you ask who is interested in XYZ topic. Those that raise their hand and sign up to watch the masterclass or the video series or whatever it is are the ones that will get the replay and then the nurture sequence. So we love to keep it simple. I'm all about like simplicity scales. Let's like stick with that. But basically it's basic CRM, a Zoom type platform is really all you kind of need to get started.
Okay. And then does this apply to every industry?
That's a good question. I would say that launching specifically through live events like this, where it's educational based, will work best with experts, creators, and kind of the influencer demographic where you sell education, right? You have courses, coaching, memberships, programs. This is probably not something I would recommend for physical products, right? There's only so much you can share about a physical product. And maybe there is a variation of that, but that's not my area of expertise. So I would never take on a brick and mortar and be like, I'm going to help you sell your body lotion through a webinar. Like I don't have any experience doing that. So that wouldn't be somebody that I would probably consult.
Right. Body lotion. Like here, how it was formulated.
Yes, totally.
Okay. So I have a couple of friends who had mentioned to me that this year, 2024, was gnarly bad for launches. They were putting so much more effort into actually closing the deals. Would the webinar turnouts were a little bit higher, and they actually started charging for seats to show up to these shows just to make sure that people would actually show up. But now it's taking an extra like 5 to 10 touch points to actually get people to convert into a sale. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've observed this year and compared to other years?
Yeah, that's a really good insight. And I think it's good to talk about this across the board. Like, yes, if you are experiencing like webinar registrations being low, content consumption is down, like you're not alone. This is like industry wide. People are having a harder time in general, right? Getting people to sign up for webinars and getting them to actually watch the content. It's like, hey, they signed up, but then they didn't come live. They didn't watch the replay. Like, I think a lot of this is just due to the point that, first of all, we are in an era now where we have a lot more sophisticated buyers. When people come to knock on your door because they're like, hey, Renee, like I need PR help. Generally, you're not the first expert that they have approached. Like a lot of times.
What? No, but everybody knows who I am.
Everyone knows who you are, but they're like, oh, Renee, I just don't know if she's in reach for me. I better start small, right? So essentially what's happening is everybody isn't as green. So it's not the typical like, they don't know what they don't know. Now they've had an experience before where they've been burned. They've invested money they didn't make back. They've tried courses and programs realizing it was not for them, or they never finished the course or program. So they spent money that they didn't get a return on, right? And so now they come to you and they have all these additional questions and all these additional expectations. And there's a lot more caution. They are taking longer to make buying decisions because they've been burned in the past. And so we have to get better at building that connection, building the trust, that relationship, and prove to them that we're not just here to sell them something, like we're here to actually give them a result, and we care, right? Like we actually care about their progress and achieving the result that they're here to get. So in terms of, what is different, it's that, to your point, yes, more touch points are required. It was a nice to have in the past. Now it's a must have. You have to have high touch points throughout your campaign to build the trust, because simply the buying process is longer. People are taking longer to make decisions. They're still spending money, but you have to work so much harder for the sale than before because there is mistrust in the market.
So how do you build that trust?
Yeah, great question. So I think a lot of that is going to be through developing relationships, right? We all know that business is really done based on relationships. And also it's about you as the leader showing up with your values.
Okay, back on the building the relationship, let's double click on that, for instance.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Like, what does a relationship look like today? Like, I'm going on a plane tomorrow to go to an event to physically meet people.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different level of relationship.
Totally.
But then there's like you and I, we've connected on Instagram. Now we have a relationship.
Yes. Yes.
So what do you mean by relationship?
Yeah, so it is, how do we get that in person? You go to an event, Renee, it'll be so easy for you to close anybody that you meet in the event who's like, oh, I really need PR, right? Because now they know you. It's not like they feel like they know you. They actually know you. They've met you in person. They love your personality. They had some kind of connection or spark, and they just had a sense of like, I just really like her. So before they even look at what your packages are, or they're asking you the granular, they're like, oh, I'm going to book a call with her because I like her. Right? Building that know, like, and trust. They've met you before. So how do we like replicate that online? Again, it goes back to how do we show up in a way that shows people they're not just a number, right? We're tired of feeling like we're just a part of the masses, that someone's just here to make a sale or a quick buck off of us. And so the way that we do that is we have these high touch strategies that we use. Like, we notice that somebody particularly is commenting a lot on our content. We might reach out and we might say, hey, so-and-so, I noticed that, you're commenting on my things. Are you looking to launch sometime in the near future? Are you looking to get PR, in the next 6 to 12 months? Are you struggling with pitching? What can I do to help you? We might send them some kind of resource, right? We might send them a voice note. We might reach out and do this thing called outbound marketing, which I know is like, what? We've gotten so used to 2020.
It's like sales.
Yes, it's like we want everyone to come to us, and then we're confused like why we don't have the sales that we want. We're like, oh, like nobody's in my inbox, nobody's requesting my help. And it's like, when was the last time you asked someone to pay you? When was the last time you sent an email and said, hey, I've noticed
I actually posted a story. I posted a story today, the story that we were talking about before recording, where I said that Instagram stories actually bleeped out the word poop. I don't want to say this, but essentially I said the most successful entrepreneurs are the ones that actually ask for the sale.
Yes. Yes.
Like, why is that so hard for some people?
I think it's because there's a stage. A seasoned entrepreneur is not afraid of asking for the sale because they're no longer afraid of being salesy. And I think that's a sign of kind of a more green entrepreneur. They're afraid of being salesy. Why? Because they feel like they're taking something from someone. It's like, I don't know, like I don't want to offend them. Like, but when you really believe that what you have to offer is the service, right? That like, I literally cannot help you until you invest your time and your wallet into this. Until you have skin in the game, you will never show up for yourself, right?
I'm writing down the word misalignment of purpose. Ooh. There's a lot of people who, and I know this, I used to coach a lot of these people, and even I see this with my PR clients, is that they're like, they want to put themselves out there, get on more podcasts, get in the media, but they can't even tighten up their story of their why because they're trying to be everything for everybody and they have so many things that they're offering. So not only are they complicating their business and creating chaos, but they're misaligned with the actual thing that they're trying to achieve for the other person.
Yeah.
There's no clear path. It's like 18 million forks in a road and a bunch of fog.
Yes. Yes. And when you're misaligned with your purpose, it makes it hard for you to know, like, why are you showing up? And you're making it, these people, I feel like they're making it all about them. When you say, oh, I don't want to be salesy, I'm like, why are you making this about you? Like, this isn't about you being salesy. This is about you being able to be in service to someone else. And until somebody has skin in the game, they're not committed to their own transformation. You can want it for them, but you can never want it for them more than they want it for themselves, right? So you have to, they say those who pay attention. It's like, you probably noticed, Renee, you have freebies, you have free offers for those in your audience, but the clients that get the biggest wins, are those the ones that download your freebies or the ones that pay you premium price to work with you?
They pay me.
Right.
Moolah.
Right.
In US dollar.
Yeah, you Canadians, I know you love that conversion rate.
I know.
It's so great.
So much.
Yes, but that's a point, right? Like, you have to move, you have to get to this place where seasoned entrepreneurs are not afraid to ask for the sale because they're in a place where they know that's the zone where they can help people at the highest level, where the biggest transformation happens is after the transaction, right? So part of that is moving from this place of, I don't want to be salesy, to like, I am ready to serve the heck out of everybody who comes into my world, right?
That's it. That's it. You're doing your customers or your potential customers a disservice by not asking for the sale. And I'll even one up that too by saying that, and I'm not saying that it's only women that do this, but we notoriously discount ourselves.
Yep.
And you know what? I actually just did this not that long ago when I offered to help a incredible woman in real estate create a PR curriculum to teach the agents that are going through her coaching program. And when I told her how much it was going to cost, she almost laughed. And then I laughed. I was like, that's stupid. It should have been like 10 times that much money. But I wasn't thinking about it. I was like, I knew what I could create for her. Here's what happens is that when you become an expert at something and you do it so much, it's so easy, you assume it's easy for other people too.
Yes. 100%.
Right. So you and you're launching, you're like, I could do this in my sleep.
Literally.
I can have a baby and I can do this. It's no problem. Meanwhile, I'm like, is it Zapier or is it like Active Campaign? And like, what am I saying? And I think that's where we tend to undervalue our knowledge and our wisdom and expertise in a given industry.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think when we live, breathe, and I know that you're similar to me because I listen to, you're like, I eat PR for breakfast. I'm like, I eat like launch strategy. I'm like, give me your debrief. I want to analyze it, right? It's fun. There's like a little bit of, yes, I love it, passion, but maybe a little bit of obsession too, that other people are like, I could never look at a PR strategy. Like it's not fun for them. So we tend to think that because it's simple for us, it must be simple for other people. And then we don't maybe value it. But I think the value comes from what is it worth to someone else, right? What could it mean for their brand to land in some of these prestigious outlets or to get on a podcast with these? I mean, you get one person a really good media win and it like transforms their business like overnight, and that's worth a lot. Even if you break it down to like ROI and numbers in their business, it's like astronomical.
Here's an example. I'm going to use you as an example. Say you come on to the show. Oh, wait, you're on it.
Hi.
And there's a listener that is like, I want to hire this Ashley girl, right? And then you work with her and then you crush it for her. Well, this girl is then going to recommend you to somebody else and maybe even somebody else.
Yeah.
And then just the way like that finite web works is like word of mouth. And then it spirals. But it's not like you didn't do the work to be on the show. The actual pitching and conversations that you and I have had were quite simple and very quick. But you've had years and years of experience to be able to do that, saying that I'm the girl for this type of conversation and I should be on your show. Yeah. You know what? Actually, you know what you did first? Here's what you did first. Backtracking, you provided value. You suggested other people that could be a potential guest on my show when I asked, hey, do you know of anybody that should be a guest on the show? And then you're like, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and here I am. That's how it works.
I think that comes like over time, when you show up, again, going back to what we were talking about earlier, with the heart to serve people, it's not about me getting on the show. It's like, listen, I know that you've had so many amazing guests that probably have, brands and audiences much larger than mine, but that's not the point, right? It's like, the point is Renee has this platform and she's here to serve her people. Do I have an area of expertise she maybe hasn't spoken to yet that her audience could be struggling with that I could show up and fill that gap? And when you lead with, how do I help people, right? It's like, that's when you don't have to worry about where's my next lead coming from? Or how do I make this, client say yes? It's like, here's what I have to offer you. Are you interested in getting support, right? And so leading with the value and getting on the train, let's say, if your train is headed like, hey, I'm going for the moon with my podcast. I want to be number one. I want all the best interviews and experts. I'm like, great, Renee, I know 3 people who could really support you on your mission, right? And by the way, if you'd like me to come along, I also have something I could contribute. And now you're like all excited because I'm supporting you and my ask is aligned with your vision and your value, which makes it so much easier for you to say yes when you're like, yes, please hop on the train. We're all going, right? It's not me being like, hey, I'm launching this book over here. Will you put down what you're doing and come on my train and support me, right? That's the difference is like, I made my goal aligned with your goal, which made it a very easy, oh my gosh, yes, come along and support and let's go.
Because you paid attention. You paid attention and you clued in to one of my needs because I actually put it out there. And I was like, hi, I need help over here on this thing. And you're like, let me help you.
Yeah.
I want to come back to relationship building and in-person networking. I was on a offboarding call with a past client, and at the end of the call, we were just debriefing him on everything. He's like, "This is really good. One question for you, Renee. All this stuff is really helpful. It's beautiful what you've created. But if you could suggest one thing that I could do for my business this year, what would it be?" And I, without hesitation, said in-person networking, in-person events. And here's why I know this. When my husband went to launch his book last year called Buy Back Your Time in January, he did a half day event to celebrate the book. And he had people like Jasmine Star and Stu McClare, like all these people come on. Guess what? These were all people that are high profile that he's physically met at an event and have offered value in the past. So when you look at the people who have these massive launches, okay, Amy Porterfield, Jenna Kutcher, you name it, they have already connected with the people who they know could help leverage that launch.
Yeah,
right?
the thing is, those people are performing at such a high level, but you get to that point when you're launching on that scale, you're not doing it alone. All of those people leverage their network when they go into a launch, right? Like the Amy Porterfield, Kate Northrup, all of these people have affiliates that are also promoting on their behalf, right? And that's more of the like, oh my gosh, Kate, yes, you're launching this thing. How can I support you? Yes, I'll send a couple emails to my list. And yes, I'll share with my audience that's very well established. And I've already generated trust with them. I will recommend you as a trusted peer to share your book, right? So it's like, those relationships are the key really to getting things off the ground. I don't know that it's sustainable in terms of scaling, right? At some point, you're going to have your own area of expertise and your own lead magnets, your own kind of strategies. But ultimately, I mean, that's kind of how I got started with my business. I worked with one creator. We had a massively successful campaign. And then all of her creative friends were like, how did you do this? She's like, I don't know anything. Go and talk to Ashley. And
That's
now
it.
my business for like the next year, I'm like, okay, I'm in business, right? So to your point, those relationships are so key, especially when you're getting started and you're building those testimonials and you're trying to kind of prove yourself online. But beyond that, as that 7-figure entrepreneur pushing to the 8 figures, I don't know anybody doing 7-figure launches or 8-figure launches alone. You just can't. Like launching is a team sport. Like you've got to recruit people, and it's so much easier to recruit them when you already have that relationship with them. You have invested, you have served, you showed up for what they needed before you're ever making an ask.
That's what I did for my podcast. So actually, I have launched before. My podcast back on April 27th, 2020. No clue what I was doing, but I hired this podcasting coach in the UK. I Googled podcast coach. First person came up, paid $200, got her on the phone for an hour, and I had like 27 questions. I'm like, okay, I got you an hour. I have all these questions. And I've learned that one of the best things you can do if you're launching a podcast is to have a launch crew, which is, I named it a launch crew, which is literally your buddies or the people that you know or your number one cheerleaders that are in this little pod, this little crew that are going to help you launch your podcast. So when it goes live, the first ones to subscribe, download, write a review, share it with their friends.
Yep.
And it's that simple. So you start with your little crew and then you build that up. That's the community. That's the relationship.
Totally.
And your cheerleaders are everywhere. And I even call them my cheerleaders. And some of them are my best friends. I'm like, you're my favorite cheerleader.
I love that. And I think that's true for really anything that you're launching, right? I think if you're launching a book, they call it your street team, right? Like, who are my people that are going to like share the book and write the review and kind of get it going? And it's all about bringing people together around this common mission. And to your point, you have to know what your mission is. Like, what is your purpose? Yeah. Because it's way easier to recruit friends and affiliates to promote your work when the mission or purpose behind the thing that you're selling or promoting is also aligned with their values. Going back to like, what do we need to do differently this year in launching? It's like, people are not just buying solutions anymore. You can't just make a package and say, here, you want to learn how to create a course, let me create it for you, here you go. It's like, but who are you as a leader? Because people, especially in the like millennial and Gen X, or Gen Z, they're buying with their values, not just their wallets. And you see this in little things like the beauty industry. Think about how the beauty industry has shifted, where everybody has like a clean beauty line now. Before, they sold these face washes that had all these toxins and parabens and things in them. And suddenly these beauty lines started coming out, and Gen Z are like, nope, we're only buying clean. We're only buying clean. We're only buying clean. And it's costing more, but that's what is selling because they are buying with their values. The face wash does the same thing. Whether you buy the detox version or the dirty version, you are getting a clean face, right?
So there's on Jasmine Star's latest episode, she interviewed a woman named Michelle Cordero Grant. I don't know if she's someone significant. I apologize. I don't know who she is, but I'm listening to this episode. She used to be in, I think she had like a lingerie line or something, and she sold it. But she was saying something of this effect that people, and it's not just Gen Z, but thank you for like cracking open the earth to being authentic and real when it comes to a brand, is that people don't necessarily wear like Michael Kors or I don't know. What's a designer label?
Like
I can't even think
Gucci
of.
or Prada
Yeah,
or
Gucci or even lesser than that. Whatever, like Calvin Klein, Levi's.
American
They don't
Eagle.
necessarily wear it because it looks good, feels good, it's comfortable, right? They wear it because the brand is something that they identify with.
Yeah, it's identity that they're buying,
That's it.
right? There's
Like the moment I remember when it was Tommy Hilfiger,
Huh?
there was like this whole thing that happened with Tommy Hilfiger, how he ended up saying something racist, or I don't even know. I'm probably just making this up, but there was a brand. Hopefully it was Tommy Hilfiger. I don't want to make them look bad. But anyways, and what happened was then all of a sudden people stopped buying the product. I think he was like anti-Semitic or something. Same goes with CrossFit. The founder of CrossFit back in 2021 made a really terrible tweet about the Black Lives Matter community and George Floyd. And it was like very offhand, very disgraceful. One tweet, that's it. One tweet made him get kicked out of the company and made him lose sponsorship from some of the biggest brands.
Mm-hmm.
So all this to say, I mean, coming back to launches is that people will buy from those that they like. And if they like you, they probably trust you. And so there's no better time now than just show the world who you really are. The real you. Be authentic. Be true. Make mistakes. Who cares? Everybody makes mistakes. And right now, that's what's selling. That's what's getting people follow you. I am married to a man who's out there like crazy. His Instagram account is blowing up. There's like so much is happening in his world. And then all of a sudden I'm getting followers. And my favorite are the women that say, hey, like, cause my husband's gone through this crazy physical transformation in the last like 8 months. And people are like, enough about Dan's shirtless photos. Like, we want to see your six pack, Renee.
Yeah,
These
we're
are from
looking at
women.
your six pack, Renee.
I'm
Yours
like-
was even more impressive, I think.
I'm not that type of person. However, what they like about the content I share is the real crap.
Mm-hmm.
They like that I'll say, oh my gosh, guys, I'm so exhausted. This is what happened last night. My dog did this and all these things happened. Here I am recording a podcast episode. Because the whole like perfectly curated stories and that's done. Nobody wants that.
It's just not relatable anymore, right? There's too much of a disconnect between where people really are. And like, there's something to be said about selling something, aspirational, but it's got to feel attainable. And when we're only showing the polished professional photos and, the end results, you're missing out on sharing the journey and the grit and the work that went into it. And so then you get these people in your programs that aren't even willing to do the work, right? Because you're selling them only half of the piece of the puzzle.
You sold them the outcome, not the journey.
Yeah. And it's
it is
got
about
to
the
be
journey.
connected. I mean, ultimately, you always want to sell the destination, right? Sell the results. But we've got to be honest about what's required. What are the tangibles in order to get there? So people know what they're signing up for. And you don't have unhappy people who are like, well, Renee, you promised that I was going to land in Forbes. And you're like, yeah, but I didn't promise that would happen in 2 weeks. Like, you know what I'm saying? It like
Try 2 years.
Yeah,
Here's
or-
all the things that you need to do to make that happen.
Yes. Like, I think people are craving the authenticity more now than ever because you have things like AI that are like replicating, like what used to be real. You have the polished highlight reels on Instagram that we've been seeing for forever, but Nobody's feed is like a magazine anymore. It's not what people want. We crave the realness because it makes us feel seen and also less crazy, right? When we have like moments where we're like, oh my gosh, like, am I the only one that this happens to? And you see other people also struggling. You're like, okay, I've got this.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say that, but I love it when I see another woman with like a 2-year-old who's having a massive tantrum in like the grocery store
Yeah.
aisle. Like, mama, you got this, but yes, my kid's not the only one that does this.
Okay, it's
My
not just
kid's not
me.
broken.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So showing up within your content when you are marketing yourself, it is not only like strategic, but also like easier to kind of be in that documenting versus creating phase where you're sharing like, look, I go to work every day to work on this because I want to put my family first so I can take off the week. I don't work weekends. If that's a value for you, tell your people that that's a value for you, because other people who value putting their family first and not working weekends are going to resonate. Somebody who's following like Hermosi, for instance, they might not actually resonate because he's saying, you've got to work 6 days a week. You got to put in the time, right? And he's talking to a totally different demographic of people. And those who are in the hustle are going to like love him and be like, yeah, let's like put in the extra work and the extra effort. He's in a different stage of life than the mama with 2 kids who's trying to like build her empire, right? So even though they both might, like, for example, Renee, like I know that was you, you're building your empire with 2 little kids. The messaging and what you value in your stage of life is going to be different than where like Alex Hormozi is in his stage of life, where he doesn't have kids and all these other dependents that require him to play these multiple roles. So you are going to attract those people who see the success you have, but also the way in which you achieved that success, right? And so weaving that into your content, weaving that into your Instagram stories is huge, because that's what builds the know, like, and trust factor. Like, oh my gosh, I just like her so much because she's a mom and she still builds a business and she still makes time for self-care. Like, it makes it feel more real. And it's like, even if we've never met before, it's like, oh my gosh, I love this girl. If we lived in the same town, we would be best friends. I just know it, right? And that is the kind of fangirl type relationship you want to create with people that don't, even if you don't know them in person.
Yeah. People love the journey. You think about like, I go TikTok, it's so smart. They like almost clue in right away the content you need. So one day it's like all the stuff about these before and afters of people losing weight, like 100 pounds. And I'm like, wow. And all these people are showing all these videos, like every single day, the thing that they did. From day to day, they're not like noticeably losing weight or anything's happening. But over the course of a few months, a year, then you start to see this transformation, but they're documenting it all, which I love because it actually shows the truth of what that journey is.
It's inspirational. It gives somebody like hope, right? Like, oh, this does take a long time. Oh, if it's possible, you were 200 pounds overweight and now you're down and you've got your dream body. Like, if I only have 50 pounds to lose, like, how inspired am I going to be just by watching your story? And I think that's the other part of it, is like, that's what connects us. It's like they always say like, stories, facts tell, stories sell. It's like, what is your personal story? Where did you start? What is your transformation? How long did it take you? Like, people resonate with the pain as much as they're going to do with that like aspiration. So you are selling yourself short when you don't tell people where you came from, because that's what's memorable. That's what they'll remember about you.
Yeah. Okay. I want to know, because you've worked with some pretty cool people. And like you just came out of a launch recently, is that correct? With somebody?
Yeah, I'm always kind of behind the scenes on a few things. So we have had multiple launches since the beginning of the year, but yes.
Okay. So what are these pros doing? Like, how are they pivoting their launch strategies? And what's the number one thing that's helping them increase their sales?
Yeah. So the pivots, when you look at like, how come some people are still crushing it online and how come there's like another big demographic of people that seem to really be struggling? And it kind of goes back to these things that we've been talking about before, where people are really doubling down on the connection with their community. So what that could look like is what I think the biggest piece is in your pre-launch. So what that means is, before you open cart, before you're saying, hey, this is now available for sale, you are putting in the work to generate those relationships, to create those connections, to show up and serve your audience without an ask, letting them know, hey, I'm a resource. I've got your back. Here's how I can serve you, right? So a few things that I've seen in this space is some of these creators will host like a boot camp, right? So they will have a boot camp 3 weeks before anything is like for sale, where they'll help people with a problem specifically related, strategically related to the thing that they're going to sell a month from now. And they'll spend 3 intense weeks giving free trainings, helping them along, helping them achieve a micro win. So when it comes to make an offer of, now that you've achieved X, do you want to go the extra mile and achieve the big result? People are like so bought in because they've already achieved a win. They already know, like, and trust you, and they're ready to take it to the finish line, right? Another thing that I've seen is people offering free one-on-one calls. So, hey, if you're feeling stuck in your business right now, why don't you jump on a 20-minute call with my team and we'll troubleshoot one thing in your business? There is nothing for sale. Come on, we'll strategize your social media. We'll help you with we'll give you a sales call tip, whatever. And they will send this out to their email list and their team. This is not sexy. This is not scalable, right? This is like the work of like, yes, I'm giving you a lot of my time. But so many of those one-on-one connections where you're meeting with people 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, when it comes to sell and you're in that capacity of like, cart is now open, we've actually seen a connection where we've had, in one campaign, there was 30% of our sales were connected to people who had this free call before they were ever involved in any type of sales funnel, right? So it's looking for those opportunities of like, where can I show up in a high touch way to make somebody feel seen, to create a genuine connection before I'm making the ask, right? Gary Vee says a lot about that. He's like the right hook,
Yeah.
punch.
Jab, 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 jab,
Yes.
jab, 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 right hook.
Yes. That's exactly what it is. So it's like, how do you show up and give? And like, he also mentions one of the best marketing strategies you can ever deploy is like to care about people, whether they end up joining your program or not. You should be showing up on that call simply to help them, because it might not be today that they join your program, right? Like we know the buying cycle is longer. You might have to launch 3 times and they be on your list for 6 months before they're finally ready to pull the trigger and they've decided, wow, like you are the person for me because I've already gotten so much value for you. And maybe it's not even them. Maybe it's a referral. Like I didn't take him up on this, but you've got to have a strategy call with this person because it helped me achieve XYZ, right? So it's a little bit of that it's planting the seeds and knowing that the season to harvest is not the same season that you plant. But if we're so focused on harvesting, eventually we're going to run out of seeds to harvest. So it's this cycle of how can we continually be serving our audience? And for those who launch regularly, like a couple times a year, a couple times a quarter, what is so important is to make sure that your biggest levers are those that you can pull in between your launches. Once your cart is open, there's only so much you can do to like save the launch, right? Like you're not hitting your goals, it's not going well. That's because you probably didn't do the things required before you entered launch season. And before you enter launch season, there's so many things that you can still do in terms of making those connections, sending Instagram voice messages to reach out to invite people personally to your live event, to send a Loom video when you notice people clicking on your emails, they're opening, hey, Sarah, just noticed that you've been clicking on this, invite. I noticed you're still not registered. Can I help you get signed up? Is there a question that I can answer? Let me know, right? Again, that's not sexy. It's not scalable. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah. It's so interesting about this whole not scalable thing. There was such a long period of time in the business world where you were deemed successful if your business was scalable. And there's just some businesses that aren't going to ever achieve that level of scalability, like a tech startup. And I think that we should optimize for scalability, but it shouldn't be where like putting all your eggs in one basket, because there are times, circumstances, seasons where you do have to pick up the phone, and that's okay. You have to get gritty. You have to get dirty. Roll up them sleeves, girlfriend. Let's get to work.
Yep. And to your point, like, I think it is good to find the scalability in a business, but if your business if every aspect isn't scalable, because there is one-on-one components and there is this fulfillment that's required on the back end, then what you're doing is you're charging premium for that, right? So you don't have to have the scalability. You don't have to have 100 or 1,000 people in your membership to hit your revenue goals, because you're charging $10, $20, $30,000 per client. And then how is that not scalable, right? If you actually have to work with less people and you make more, that's still a form of leverage, right? So again, it's like going back to like, well, how big should my audience be? It's like, well, that depends. Like, what are you selling? What is the transformation? And how much does it cost? Like, put those into perspective to your goal. If you want to make 100 grand on a launch, decide how many people at what price point do I need to hit that goal, right? And you can adjust that based off your workload or your season of life. If you've got 2 little kids around, you don't probably want to be working with 100 clients. Maybe you just want to work with 2 clients at 25K and call it good, right?
Totally. Okay, so let's do some summarizing now. What are the top 3 strategies that people can use to launch in 2024?
Yes, I would say, kind of wrapping this up a little bit is look for the ways that you can incorporate more touch points into your campaign, right? I think one of those things could be having extra events associated with your launch. So a very typical standard way to launch a program is through a webinar. Are webinars dead? No. I've heard a lot of talk about that on space. They're not dead. Webinars still perform. But if you're wanting to get more touch points in front of someone, maybe do a workshop series or a challenge instead, where you are creating a series of bingeable content that people can go back and watch. And now they have 3 sessions with you instead of 1, right? Or maybe you add a bonus Q&A coaching session to the end. Like, hey, we're going to have this live workshop, but on Thursday, come back and we're going to have live Q&A. Let people experience what it's like to actually work with you and see how you answer questions or how you address obstacles. That is also going to build trust, right? So that would be something I'd be looking at. Additionally, traffic has been a big pain point for people, right? They're paying for ads. They've been expensive. Their audience feels burnt out. Leverage that network. Again, this all ties back to relationships. Leverage your affiliates. Are there people that you know that have established audiences? Can you reach out to them and say, hey girl, I know you've got a list that's bigger than mine, or that's, really loyal. Would you be willing to send out 2 emails inviting your people to my event? If any of these people end up buying from me, would love to give you a cut or a commission or whatever. Partnerships, affiliates. It could be introducing someone to your newsletter, right? It doesn't even have to be something like really official. So I would say, leverage those touch points in your own campaign, leverage your network as far as like your affiliates and partnerships to drive people there. And then on that back end, I would say, do your follow-up. Like, yes, send out the standard email sequence of like why you should buy, but I would stay close to the money in terms of looking at who's clicking on your checkout links. Go back into your CRM. You can see who clicks on the link to the sales page, and you can look at who's clicked and who hasn't bought. And I would send messages to all of those people. And I would be like, hey, Susie Q, I noticed that you've clicked my sales page 3 times and you're still on the fence. I wanted to send you this quick Loom video to see if there's anything I can personally help you with, or if you have any questions related to your business that maybe we could jam about and help you decide if this is going to be the right next fit. I once had a campaign where we were in launch mode, right? We're trying to pull all the levers and the sales weren't coming in. And we sent out one email and we said, hey, if you're on the fence, you still have questions, here is my phone number. If you are interested and have questions, send me a text message and I will respond to any question you have, right? Every single person who ended up texting into that number became a client and joined the program.
That's awesome.
Because of the intimacy, right? Because they're like, wait a minute, like I get to talk to the actual creator. Someone's actually going to respond to me. It made them feel special. It made them feel seen. So how can we make people feel seen within our campaigns, especially when we are launching to masses, right? When we're trying to host big group events, people want to feel like someone actually cares, right? Going back to that. And we can build those relationships through those micro touch points, those Loom videos, those DM messages, those texts. Like, look at how you could potentially incorporate those into your campaigns, and you will see it's a lot of work, but it works. And that's why it's worth it.
So the Loom thing is awesome. It's working right now in the world of PR as well.
Okay.
So I had one PR strategy build out that I did for a client in like the health and nutrition space. And I said, let's not go broad. Let's just go super niche and be very specific with the type of podcasts that we're going to pitch you to, or you're going to pitch your team to, or whatever. Your team's going to pitch you to. And then I said, these are such big shows. Like we're talking like Dave Asprey, like that level of show, that you need to put a lot of intention into this pitch and the experience for the person hopefully opening this email. And so I said, why don't you, on top of crafting the ultimate pitch, shoot a Loom video as to why you'd be a great guest for his show and put that on a hidden landing page on your website. So that when you pitch them, you click on the link, hey, I shot you a video, and then it goes to the video. Because I know this by getting pitched all the time. I actually got five pitches today, and maybe even more because my assistant checks my inbox, that were so terrible. There's a woman that repitched her 2 clients from April today that I said no to already. And I see this with more and more hosts. They're getting really, really terrible pitches. People aren't paying attention. They're not actually doing the research who this host is. And they're pitching based on a number they're going to check off on a spreadsheet. And the host feels it and they know it. And so if you shoot the Loom video or something like that, that is custom to the person you're reaching out to, that engagement goes through the roof. It might not even be like Dave Asprey might say, oh, no, you're not a good fit for my show. But listen, I love what you did. Like, way to show the intention and the motivation behind this. But may I suggest so-and-so show? That's how you build relationships. So it's about that intentionality is putting in more time, because the spray and pray doesn't work. And especially in the world of PR, it's so people can see right through it. And the other thing too, that these custom videos do in the world of PR and probably in the launch as well, is it essentially skips past those AI filters of people thinking, oh, is this written by AI? Mm-hmm. Like even my son today on the way to camp, he asked me about like songwriting. I go, you know what? We're coming to an era now where songwriting is done by AI and we don't know we don't know who created it. It's going to become so easy to create a banger of a song. How are we going to now establish this music from the artist? Mm-hmm. And so what we got to do now is physically meet people as much as we can, and then create these custom things like videos and jumping on phone calls and unfortunately, that's the industry. And we can't really change that. We can just go with the flow.
Yeah, to your point, where everything like social media was like designed to connect everybody, but like in a lot of ways, all these ways of being able to connect has like actually distanced people, right? Where it's like, I don't feel like I have to call my girlfriend and see how she's doing if I just watched her stories and she's like posted her pictures. I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, they had a great day. Like, cool, right? Like in the past, that wasn't so readily available. We used to have to pick up the phone and be like, Mom, how's it going? Or hey, Bessie from college, like, tell me what's new in your world, you know? And now where we feel like we already know, it's like, we're not having those intimate details with people. We're not building those connections. And with, to your point, AI kind of taking off, my partner always says, it takes so little to be above average. Like, look at the places where it's like, how long would it take you to create a Loom video? Like that could be like less than 60 seconds to be like, hey, listen, I just wanted to give you a shout out and let you know, I love what you're doing, the content you're creating. And I just wanted to let you know if there's anything that you need from my area of expertise, I would love to support you. Right? Yep. How many times would people show up in someone's inbox asking how they can help them, right? Versus making the ask, can I be on your show? Would you like to promote me, right? So how do you twist that? How do you reverse engineer that and do something that's actually going to be just like cut through the noise? You cut through the noise by being a person of service and by going above and beyond, usually with your time, investing your time to do the research, to make the connection. Offer something unique. My client, Amy Stockberger, is a real estate agent out of South Dakota, in top 10% in the state, number 53 or 57 in the country. How she got there was because she realized the table stakes in being a real estate agent, the bar was really low. And then people show up and they're like, if that's what I got to do, then that's all I'm going to do. But why aren't I getting more clients? Right. And she realized the industry was really about cold leads and cold calling. But what about nurturing the customers you already have? Mm-hmm. Because there's like an average of how many times somebody sells their home. But also,
with our real estate agent, Richard, he came out of a recommendation from a friend. We didn't know the guy. We didn't really follow him online. And so we worked with him and it was great because he had systems and the stuff was awesome. So then when we had friends move to town, we probably farmed him out to like a dozen people.
Mm-hmm.
So what she does, what Amy does is so different is that she offers this lifetime, home lifetime value. I should know the name of this thing. I'm just writing the pitches now. But essentially, get this. If you're a real estate agent, you can buy the licensing to become part of her thing. And when you do that as an agent, now you get access to moving trucks, party rentals, like all these tools, a tool shed. So all these things that people don't even think of when they're moving, and that those agents' clients can use all that stuff for free. And so what she realized is that in the industry of real estate is agents were only looking at what the cold leads are and not nurturing their current customers for life.
Yes.
Because we know people go through all these different phases in their life, from new jobs to new babies to deaths where they're moving. And some of this stuff is warranted. Some of the stuff is intentional. Some of these things are very sad. And so if you can be the agent that has some of those bases covered because you get access to a free moving truck, hallelujah, right? Customer for life. And the investment for her, get this, super smart. These moving trucks, she's got 3 of them. They're moving around all the time and they're wrapped in her branding. So now it's free advertising.
That's so good.
Right? So it didn't take much for her to invest in these trucks. It didn't take much for her to buy these party rental things from popcorn machines to bouncy castles. And now she has these really happy customers that are going to tell everybody about this. Like my real estate agent, I bought a house from them 5 years ago and they're still taking care of me.
What I love about what you just mentioned here is like when we're in an economy, right, where things feel tighter and sales feel harder and we're having to do more of the outbound scrappy type work and people are like, oh, this is like harder than it was last year, right? There's always the option of like, well, we better just like drop our rates or we better just charge less because people are having a hard, so let's make it easier by charging less, right? But the alternative there in what you've just described is there's always the option to instead give more. So instead of like dropping rates and having everybody race to the bottom, devaluing your expertise, like good luck ever selling anything for more money again in the future because now people are entitled and think that they can get everything for like rock bottom prices, right? It's like, how do we keep our offer the same price or even charge more, but deliver more, where instead of taking something away, you're adding additional value? And that's exactly what you just described Amy's done. She's like, listen, I'm not going to charge you. I'm not going to get you as a client because I'm going to take a less percentage or a less cut on the sale that I make. I'm going to make this a better sweetened deal for you because I'm taking away the headache of you having to organize the moving truck and you having to get the movers to come. And like, you've got enough. You just had a baby. Like the last thing you need is to organize all those things. Let me just go ahead and do that for you. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, please. Like nobody else can.
That's it. And think about like the stuff we buy on like Facebook Marketplace. We bought a couch and they're 20 minutes away and I don't have a vehicle. Now I have to go schedule something at U-Haul. It's going to cost me $300 to get this couch. Or I can just call up my agent and say, hey, can I get my hands on that moving truck for a couple hours on Monday afternoon? Bam. Right? So we think about, and this is your unique selling proposition, is how can you go from what is required of you to being better? So the table stakes of a restaurant is that you're going to have great service, great food. Like, I'm sorry, you have a restaurant and you don't have those 2 things, shut it down or change things. Like it's the table stakes. And then anything you do above and beyond that is actually free marketing. It's free. You have the customer already there. The customer is ready to buy. You're dangling the carrot. They're ready to buy. How can you sweeten the deal for them? Because they have that problem. You've already pushed on their bruise. They're just weary about something. Fix it for them and then make the sale.
Yeah, it's all about
What's the deal?
identifying the problem, right? What is the problem after the problem? Okay, you bought a house. Now what problems do they have? Oh gosh, I got to pack everything. I got to sell everything. I've got to, buy new furniture, to your point. Like, could she potentially have a collaboration or an affiliate with a furniture store that she like recommends people to, right? Maybe she gets them a sweet discount. Like, hey, if you go to Ashley Furniture, you'll get 15% off if you mention that I was your realtor, right? Like, the sky becomes the limit when you look at what other problems can I help solve for people?
Uh-huh. But the key is don't complicate it from the get-go if you've never done this
Oh,
before.
totally.
Amy's been in the industry for a very long time. She has systems and people in place. She didn't just start yesterday and has moving trucks and popcorn machines.
Right.
Right? So
Right.
it's like chew off, bite off what you can actually chew. Bite off what you can chew. Um, okay, I have a million questions for you, but then I realized we could just talk till you deliver your baby. So let's not do that. So one last question for you. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
Oh, I wish I had prepped this butter in the beginning. Gosh, I think being a wild woman means pursuing what you want unapologetically without anyone else's permission.
Mm.
I think as women, sometimes we look so much to other people's approval, to society's expectation, and it becomes hard to break out of the norm for fear of rejection or isolation or being too much or being too little, and trying to find where we fit in and where we'll be accepted / where we belong. And I think if more of us had the courage to step outside of that box and say, hey, this is who I am, and it's okay if you don't like me, I'm okay with you not liking me, it would give more women permission to also step outside the box and be like, oh my gosh, like, this person did it completely unconventionally. Like, if they can do it, what am I waiting for, right? It is the invisible permission slip for other women to decide that they also can fully step into that authenticity and be the breadwinner and the mom if they want to. They don't have to choose between the both if they don't want to decide they don't want kids and they only want a career, or to decide, maybe their goal is to like shut down the biz and just be at home with their babies. Like, the answer is different for every woman, but it's usually women that put these expectations on each other as much as society. So I think the change starts with us and starts with the individual, in terms of us not being afraid to step outside that boundary, but also letting the judgment go on other women who decide to choose differently.
Yeah. Oh, hallelujah. If you don't want to have kids, who cares? If you do, go right ahead.
Yeah, girl, be you. Like, pursue the thing that's going to light your light on fire, right? Because
Yeah.
that is going to be the inspiration, the catapult for all of the people that come behind you. And what an incredible, like, fulfilling moment. Like, I love nothing more than to get a piece of feedback from content, whenever they're like, this was exactly what I needed today. Or like, wow, you showing up in this way inspired me to start my own journey. I'm like,
That's it.
I could like die happy. That's it. I've achieved my life goal, right? Like, I think most of us have this driving purpose to know that the impact that we make on other people was like, was in some way life-changing, right? Helped somebody. Coming to earth means that other people's lives are better than before it was when we got here. I think there's a sense of human fulfillment around that, knowing that we're leaving the world better than we found it.
Mm.
And so to be able to inspire people and to give them tools that we've already kind of figured out, it's just, it's the way that we continue to innovate. And that's why people learn things at a faster pace. Our clients often get better results than we do, because our ceiling or our floor is their ceiling, right? Or no, our ceiling is their floor. And we're able to help them reach higher heights because they were able to take our struggle or our lesson and build on that.
That's it. Okay. Speaking of journeys, where can people go online to find you to follow your journey?
Yes. Okay. So I'm most active on Instagram. Obviously, that's where me and Renee really connected. We love the gram. So you can find me at Ashley Brasseaux, AShleyBrasso. Send me a DM. Would love to chat, get to know you. We can talk all the things, launch, momhood, whatever you want. It's great. Would love to connect.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us today, Ashley.
Thank you, Renee.